I'm here today with Dr. Adam Sandford. He's a naturopathic doctor from the Naturopathic Wellness Center in El Segundo, California. And I'm here to ask him a couple of questions about SIBO. Adam, thanks so much for your time today. I'd love to hear what is happening in your clinic with regards to people coming in and presenting with SIBO. Are you seeing that there's an increase in patients with SIBO or digestive disorders?
Pretty significantly. When I started even looking into SIBO 3 or 4 years ago, the trickle was fairly small. Now that we're looking at it and we're looking to diagnose, it's more and more and more. I'd say right now I probably have had 10 or 15 new SIBO patients just in the last month.
Wow.
Which a few years ago it might have been 1 a month.
Yeah.
I think A, people are finding us, but B, just the skills of detection and discerning it are getting just that much more.
Yeah, that's crazy. So a question I get asked a lot by people is, what's the difference between IBS or Irritable Bowel Syndrome and SIBO?
Well, from my perspective and many of the people that I've trained with, IBS is, you might call, just a collection diagnosis. It's when we've ruled out lots and lots of other things, have no idea what it is, therefore it's called Irritable Bowel Syndrome. And you might slap on a D or a C if it's constipation or diarrhea dependent.
Yeah, sure.
These days, the studies, at least the studies done by Salix, suggest that 58% of IBS is actually dysbiosis related. They say SIBO, but it could also be SIFO with the fungal aspect. But either way, infection-based that responds to various types of treatments.
Right, okay. Another thing that I get asked a lot by SIBO sufferers is, what's the right way to treat SIBO? Should people be going down the antibiotic route? Should they be looking at herbal supplements, or should they do a combination of both? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I get asked that a lot too, and whenever I talk with patients about their potential SIBO diagnosis, we look at it in terms of what's right for the patient, what their preferences are, what their breath tests said initially, what their prior response to any type of treatment has been, and also what's available to them where they are. I have people from out of country that maybe they only have access to the antibiotics and garlic, or something like that.
Sure.
Another thing you look at is, while the antibiotics work quicker, unit per unit, sometimes they can be narrower spectrum. With a lot of the herbals, you get a broader spectrum. It might take longer, but you get more comprehensive coverage. For example, rifaximin doesn't do anything for yeast, whereas a lot of the herbals will work into a yeast picture.
Definitely. And if someone's been treating their SIBO for a while and they're just not getting a good response, or they don't feel like they're progressing, what would your advice be on how they approach their treatment?
Anytime you're doing any type of treatment with SIBO, if you have somebody that's running the breath tests and you feel like you're not making progress, you want to retest the test and see if you actually are making progress and you just haven't gotten below the treatment threshold, or if that mechanism is just not working. And if it's not working, mix it up.
Yeah.
Or you can try alternating. I'll frequently maybe do a round of the pharmaceuticals, then a round of the herbals, then the elemental diet, which we haven't talked about.
No.
But if you're not making progress, it's time to assess and mix it up.
Yeah, definitely. And something that I did in my journey with treating SIBO is that I changed it up with my naturopathic treatment in Australia, and every cycle we changed it so that my system didn't get used to it. And that worked really well for me.
Absolutely.
Can you still have SIBO type symptoms but be clear of SIBO?
It depends on what you mean by clear of SIBO. If you mean that the breath test does not show a screaming positive, absolutely. I mean, you could have a flatline breath test, which in that case, what that is more meaning is most likely it's a hydrogen sulfide producing SIBO. We just don't have a test for that yet.
Sure.
If I have somebody that has a flatline test, I will automatically treat for SIBO because I'm looking at it as being dysbiosis.
Yeah.
If it's a happy test where it has the right curve and things like that, but they still have the symptoms, you have to dig deeper. Yeah. You have to look at yeast, you have to look at motility issues, you have to look at food sensitivities, leaky gut. It's a pretty broad array of things that can impact our belly. Yeah,
it is definitely. And from my experience with my own journey, it wasn't just one thing I needed to address. I needed to address a whole series of things, which kind of moves us into my next question, which is around lifestyle. So we obviously can get quite focused on just the treatment aspect of SIBO, but how important do you believe it to be to address the other elements components such as obviously our nutrition, how we live our life, our stress, our sleep, how we exercise and move. What do you advise your patients around that?
I think those are actually the most important components. When you're going in and you're working with your doctor, we're usually focusing on the bacterial part and maybe the reinoculation, the reparent components like that. But the real question is, how did you end up in that way in the first place? Was it chronic stress? Was it a poor initial diet? Was it lack of movement? What was impacting the motility? What was causing it to build up like that? They're super important. And when you leave your doctor's office and you have your various supplements or pills or elemental diets or whatever, it's that work that you're doing at home. It's that long-term work, and it's especially the work that you do in the 3 to 6 months after you've done the pharmaceuticals or the herbs or what have you, that are going to make or break whether or not you see a resurgence. Or if you do see a resurgence, how soon and how intense.
Yeah. And people that have been following me for a while know that I had to change my lifestyle. I obviously had to focus on my nutrition, and I also really focused on my stress. I'd been a highly stressed individual in a really pressurized corporate job, and I quit my job and I started doing my own thing, and my stress levels, I realized, were playing such a significant part of keeping me sick. But the other component as well was my mindset. So I believed I was sick. I believed I was always going to be sick because I'd been chronically ill for most of my life. And so when I changed that mindset and I started focusing on the positives rather than the negatives, my symptoms improved dramatically, and so did my health.
That's huge. That's huge. And people become attached to feeling sick and are afraid to make the change. It's kind of an identity. So it's brilliant. It's beautiful that you were able to make that transition.
Yeah, thank you. And that's obviously why I do what I do, to help others get through this. We touched a little bit on the elemental diet, and diet and nutrition is obviously a very important part of this. What's your advice to people around the foods that they're eating? Do they need to make significant changes to their diet, or can they still eat the foods they've always eaten and expect a different result?
This is pretty much the perennial question. If they're trying, what is it? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got, or the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. If the issue came from the person's diet and the way they were eating, they probably need to change. If it was stress and lifestyle and thyroid and you've got the motility moving and things like that, maybe they'll do okay. But generally, we're looking at SIBO as being a chronic condition. You're getting rid of the symptoms, you're making it go away, but then the maintenance part has a lot to do with your diet. So it's some type of changes are important, especially those critical 3 to 6 months afterwards. And then the goal is to just for each person to figure out what foods work for them over time, slowly layer those in, and then when you find the foods you can't eat, pull that out for a few years. Yeah,
and something I found was that after years of being very intolerant to gluten and dairy, when I healed my SIBO, I could eat those foods again, but I choose not to eat them on a regular basis. So they're a really special occasion food. So like now I'm in the States and I'm traveling and I don't have control over all the food I eat. I allow a little bit of that to creep in. But when I'm home and it's just normal Monday to Friday life, I'm pretty rigid with my diet because I don't want to relapse into SIBO, and I don't want to give my system the opportunity to fuel extra bacteria by having a high carbohydrate, high gluten diet.
Absolutely.
When would you advise someone to go onto the elemental diet?
Well, previously my answer would have been close to never because it was disgusting tasting. But with some of the changes that we've been doing with the homemade one, that's looking a lot better. Lisa Shaver, Allison Seebecker have done beautiful work with that. Also, there's a company, ITI, that's about to come up with their own packaged elemental diet, which, from what I hear, tastes less bad from patients that have tried both. Which, if you try the elemental diet, you know that this is an important thing. Well, the results that we see when people run a good elemental diet are kind of spectacular. Better than rifaximin, better than herbal combos. So as soon as this comes out, and I've personally tasted it and vetted its palatability, I'm going to start using it probably as my first line. So do a round of the elemental, then do a round of either the herbals and the rifaximin. Make sure I have good biofilm busters in place. But the more naturally I can do it, the better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm against rifaximin, it's just I'm tired of it being my first line approach.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I understand. So just to finish up, what would your top tips be for anyone watching this video on how to live life with SIBO? What are the things that they can do today that will help them not only live while they're treating it, but help prevent it coming back in the future?
The things you touched on with regards to exercise, movement, diet modification are phenomenal, but it's just like with Parkinson's or other conditions, SIBO isn't everything that's going on with your health. I would lose probably half of my practice if everybody took a good quality B complex that fit their genetics, had some magnesium at bedtime, had breakfast with a lot of protein and fat in it, and slept 7 to 8 hours a night. That would really, half my practice would go away. If everybody did that, that would be brilliant. You take care of the stress modification, you quit your annoying corporate jobs. You did that, I did that.
Yep.
And you'll see some really beautiful changes. I'd suggest everybody just starts with the fundamentals.
Yeah, so it's really getting back to basics and living life as, I always like to say what my grandparents or great-grandparents lived, taking away a lot of the stresses and just getting back to nature and getting back to basics, sleeping, reducing our stress, eating good quality food. So thank you very much, Adam. It's been wonderful chatting to you today, and I'm sure my viewers have really enjoyed listening to you talk about SIBO. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, you'll see plenty more videos coming out following the SIBO Symposium. I'm Rebecca Coomes from The Healthy Gut, and until next time, happy health.